The dawn broke humid and heavy over the glades, the air thick with dew that clung to the corn leaves like sweat. Ray Dawson pushed open the back door of his farmhouse, a chipped enamel coffee mug in one hand and a tired frown etched deep across his face. The farm was quiet except for the chorus of cicadas and a low croak of frogs somewhere near the canal. Too quiet. Normally, the chickens raised hell as soon as the sun cracked over the horizon. Ray took a sip of coffee, wincing at its bitterness, then set the mug down on the porch railing. His boots sank slightly in the damp earth as he walked toward the coop. The closer he got, the clearer it became. Something was wrong. Feathers lay scattered across the dirt like a white and brown snowfall. The wire mesh along the bottom corner of the coop had been bent inward, jagged edges catching the light. And the smell, sharp, musky, not fox, not raccoon. Something heavier. Son of a, Ray muttered, crouching to inspect the damage. He had patched that section not 3 weeks ago. Now it looked as if a battering ram had shoved its way through. Inside the coop, 3 of his hens clucked nervously in the corner. But 6 were gone. Ray cursed under his breath, straightening up. Coyotes? Nah, would have left blood. Dogs? Don't think so. This, his eyes narrowed. In the damp soil outside the wire, a drag mark curved away, deep and deliberate. A groove, as though something heavy had slid across the dirt. Ray spat. Snake. He felt a twist of anger in his gut. He had heard stories. Neighbors losing cats, dogs, even deer taken down by pythons that shouldn't have been here in the first place. He hated the thought of his hens ending up in some invasive monster's belly. He jogged back to the porch, grabbed the hoe leaning against the railing, and turned toward the field. The corn stretched before him in neat, high rows, already past his shoulder, a green maze that rustled with every stray breeze. The drag mark cut directly into it. Ray hesitated at the edge. The sensible thing would be to wait, call Miguel next door, or even animal control. But sensible didn't sit right with him this morning. This was his farm, his land, and something about the silence, about the way the chickens had been left trembling in a pile. It felt like a challenge. He gripped the hoe tighter. Ain't letting you make a nest out here. With that, he stepped into the corn. The rows swallowed him whole within 10 steps. Stalks brushed against his shoulders, whispering as he passed, their tassels shivering in the windless air. The ground was uneven, soft with last night's rain, and every step left a sucking sound behind. Ray followed the drag mark, his boots sinking into the dark soil. He tried to keep his breath steady, but the stillness pressed in. No chickens, no frogs, just his own footfalls. Halfway down the 3rd row, he froze. A shadow rippled across the stalks. A flash of movement, quick and sinuous, disappearing as soon as he spotted it. Ray adjusted his grip on the hoe. I saw you. Silence. He took another step, then another, forcing himself forward. He wasn't a fool. He knew pythons grew big, bigger than any snake Florida had a right to hold. But knowing wasn't the same as seeing, and right now, his imagination kept painting coils as thick as truck tires winding through the corn. Then, rustling. To his left, 10 feet away. Ray turned, heart hammering. Stalks swayed, parting briefly to reveal a glimpse of patterned scales, brown and gold, slipping between green. Jesus, he whispered. It was larger than he expected. Much larger. The snake slid away from him, deeper into the rows, its body moving with an eerie smoothness. Ray took a step after it, then another. Some part of him screamed that this was madness. He should back out, get help. But the anger burned hotter than the fear. That was his land, his hens, his family's table those birds were meant to fill. He couldn't just let it slide back into the swamp fat on his livestock. Not today, he muttered, pushing forward. The deeper he went, the thicker the air felt. The corn rows grew tighter, darker, the sun above filtering down in broken shafts. Sweat stung his eyes. At first, he thought he was gaining on the snake. The rustle ahead seemed close. Then it vanished. Ray paused, straining to hear. His breath came hard, loud in his own ears. Nothing. He turned, trying to trace his way back, but the rows all looked the same, green walls stretching in every direction. The farmhouse was gone, hidden by the stalks. Damn it. That's when the sound came again, this time behind him. Ray spun just in time to see it. The python slid between the stalks not 10 feet away, its body thicker than his arm, its head raised just slightly above the dirt. Its eyes, dark and glassy, caught the morning light. It wasn't fleeing. It was circling. Ray raised the hoe. "Come on then," he said through clenched teeth. The snake surged forward, closing the distance in an instant. Its body struck the hoe with bone-jarring force, knocking Ray back a step. The sound of scales scraping against metal filled the air. Son of a... Ray swung wildly, the blade grazing along the snake's back. The python twisted, sliding away again, but not far. Ray's chest heaved. His hand shook on the handle. The thing wasn't afraid of him. If anything, it was playing with him. He backed up, trying to retrace his steps. But the corn pressed in, endless and identical. "Don't lose your head," he muttered to himself. "Just keep." A sudden weight slammed against his boot. Ray shouted, jerking his leg back. The python's tail had lashed out, coiling briefly around his ankle before slipping away. The ground felt unsteady beneath him. His heart hammered in his ears. He tried to breathe, tried to focus, but the thought hit him hard and cold, cutting through the heat. The snake wasn't lost in the corn. He was. Ray stood still, chest rising and falling, the hoe trembling in his hands. He turned slowly in a circle, the corn towering, the silence absolute. Somewhere in that green labyrinth, the python moved, patient, powerful, waiting. He swallowed hard, his mouth dry as ash. This ain't good." And then, as if an answer, the corn behind him rustled again. This time, closer, much closer. The rustle came again, heavier this time, like someone dragging a wet rope through the stalks. Ray froze, his grip on the hoe slick with sweat. His heart thumped, so hard it felt like the snake might hear it. Then silence. He turned slowly, squinting into the endless green. Every stalk looked the same, thick, tall, swaying just slightly as if mocking his confusion. "All right," he muttered under his breath, trying to steady himself. "Ain't the first time I've been lost in these rows." But it was the first time he had been lost with something out here hunting him. He took a cautious step forward, then another, moving where the soil seemed disturbed. The drag marks were harder to see now, broken by the rain and his own footprints, but they were still there, a faint trail snaking deeper into the maze. The silence pressed in, not a bird, not an insect, just his own breathing and the soft creak of corn stalks rubbing together. Then, sudden and sharp, a rabbit exploded from the rows at his feet, shooting across his path with a squeal. Ray flinched, raising the hoe instinctively. Damn fool thing. But the rabbit wasn't what made his blood run cold. Behind him, the stalks shifted with a low, purposeful rustle. Something heavier than a rabbit. Much heavier. Ray spun, catching a glimpse, just a glimpse, of the python's head rising above the rows, tongue flickering in and out, tasting the air. Its eyes were flat, unblinking, locked on him. Ray swallowed, backing up a step. "You don't scare me," he said aloud, though his voice cracked on the words. The python lunged. It struck short, the sudden movement startling enough that Ray stumbled backward, his boot sliding in the mud. The snake's head slammed into the ground where he had been standing, the impact making the soil shudder. Ray swung the hoe down hard. The metal edge scraped along the snake's back, peeling a thin line of scales. The python hissed, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through the corn. "Not so tough now, are you?" Ray grunted, though his arms shook from the force of the blow. The snake coiled back, then slid away again into the stalks. For a moment, the world went silent. Ray stayed frozen, hoe raised, his breath ragged. He turned his head slowly, trying to see which way it had gone. But the rows were empty. The anger that had driven him here wavered, replaced by something colder. He was deep in now, too deep. The corn cut off every line of sight, every sense of direction. The house might have been a mile or an inch away. There was no telling. He turned, trying to retrace his steps, but the path behind looked the same as the one ahead. And the drag marks? Gone. Just trampled soil, indistinguishable. All right, Ray," he said, his voice shaking. Keep it steady. Just pick a row and walk it out. He started forward, hoe clutched in both hands. His ears strained for sound, every rustle making his skin prickle. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. Time meant nothing in the corn. His shirt clung to his back, drenched with sweat. The air was so thick it felt like syrup. Then he heard it again, a long, low scrape directly behind him. Ray spun just in time to see the python's massive body sliding across the row. He stumbled back, his heel catching on a root, and barely managed to stay upright. The snake paused, lifting its head again. Its tongue flicked out, tasting him, and in that moment Ray realized with sick certainty, it wasn't fleeing. It was following, testing him, hurting him. Not today, he whispered, forcing strength into his voice. He raised the hoe. The python moved. It surged forward, faster than seemed possible for something so heavy. The rows snapped and bent as its body plowed through. Ray swung wildly, the hoe clanging off a stalk instead of the snake. The python struck, its head hitting his leg like a battering ram. Ray roared, bringing the hoe down again, this time connecting with the snake's side. The blade bit shallow, barely cutting, but it was enough to make the python recoil with a violent twist. "Yeah, that's right," Ray shouted, though his chest burned with terror. "You want to fight? You got one." The snake hissed again, the sound vibrating through his bones. Then it vanished into the stalks once more. Ray stood gasping, the hoe trembling in his grip. His leg throbbed from the impact, and he could already feel the bruise forming. He wiped his face with a shaking hand. The rows around him were still, too still, and then the truth hit him like a stone. It wasn't gone. It was circling. Ray turned slowly, scanning the green walls around him. His mouth was dry as dust. He could hear it now, faint movements, deliberate, as the snake repositioned. Not rushing, waiting. He backed up a step, then another, trying to keep his eyes on every direction at once. But it was useless. The corn was too thick, the snake too silent. For the first time that morning, the fire of his anger flickered out, leaving only the raw edge of fear. He was alone, lost, and whatever chance he had of walking back out seemed to shrink with every passing second. "Think, Ray," he muttered. "Think." But all he could think of was the way the python's body had felt slamming into him. The weight, the power. If it got a coil around him, just one, he wouldn't be getting back up. The corn rustled again, this time ahead. Ray tightened his grip on the hoe. "Come on," he said, his voice low and grim. "Come on, then." The stalks parted. The python's head rose, higher this time, its body swelling as it moved into the row. It stared at him with those unblinking eyes, and Ray realized with a chill that it wasn't afraid. Not of him, not of the hoe, not of anything. It had been here before. It knew this ground, and he didn't. Ray lifted the hoe, sweat dripping into his eyes. "One of us ain't walking out of here," he said, his voice breaking. The snake hissed, low and long, and then it surged forward. The python surged forward, and Ray braced, hoe raised, when a sound cut through the corn. A voice. "Ray? That you?" Ray's heart jumped. For a moment, he almost dropped the hoe in relief. "Miguel, over here!" he shouted, though the corn swallowed his words. The python halted, its head swaying, tongue flicking. Then it slid sideways, vanishing once more into the rows. Ray's chest heaved. The reprieve was small, but it was something. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Miguel, I'm here. Hurry." Miguel Ortiz had been up since before dawn, checking his line of hog traps along the cypress edge. The morning was already sticky hot, the kind of air that clung to a man's lungs. He had just unloaded his pack into the bed of his truck when he thought he heard it, faint, carried on the stillness. A shout. At first, he figured it was kids down by the canal or one of the migrant crews calling across the fields. But then it came again, sharper, panicked. "Help! Miguel Fronez." He wiped his forehead with a bandana and reached for the machete strapped to his belt. "That sounded like Ray," he muttered. He glanced across the cornfield, its rows stretching like green walls. He didn't like it. A man could get swallowed up in there. He'd seen it happen before. Hunters, hikers, folks who underestimated how disorienting the corn could be. But the sound had urgency in it, real fear. Miguel tightened his grip on the machete. "Hang on, buddy." Ray stumbled backward between the rows, scanning frantically for movement. His hands shook on the hoe. He wanted to run toward Miguel's voice, but the problem was he didn't know where it was coming from. The corn muffled everything, making near sound far and far sound near. "Begin." Ray yelled again, throat raw. "I'm stuck in here. Keep hollering." Miguel called back. His voice was closer now, though Ray still couldn't see him. "I'm coming." The relief nearly buckled Ray's knees. But then came the rustle, low and deliberate, circling again. Ray raised the hoe. "Don't you try it," he growled to the unseen coils. "Don't you damn try it." Miguel pushed through the rows, machete slicing stalks where they grew too dense. Every so often he stopped, cocked his head, and listened. "Ray, give me a shout." "Here, keep talking." Miguel's boots squelched in the damp soil. He had grown up in these parts, knew the woods, the water, the animals. But even he felt a twist in his gut at the silence. No crickets, no birds, not even a crow overhead. It was the kind of quiet that meant something big had claimed the space. He muttered to himself, "Feels like the swamp after a gator strike." Then, in the next row, the corn shifted. Miguel stopped dead. Through the stalks, he caught a flash of patterned scales sliding past. Thick, too thick for any rattler or native snake. Miguel's jaw tightened. Hell, Burmese python. He gripped the machete tighter and pressed forward. Ray nearly collapsed with relief when Miguel finally burst through the row, machete in hand, sweat glistening on his brow. "Thank God," Ray breathed. "It's in here, Miguel. Big one. Took 6 of my hens." Miguel glanced around, his expression grim. "Yeah, I saw it. You're lucky it didn't take you too." Ray bristled. "I ain't letting some overgrown swamp worm run me off my own land. This ain't no rattler, Ray. I've seen one of these things take down a deer. Full grown." Miguel's dark eyes fixed on him. "We're not just talking livestock. We're talking people." The silence pressed in again, broken only by the faint hiss of stalks rubbing together. Ray tightened his grip on the hoe. "Then we end here." Miguel shook his head. "You think it's just one?" "No, I saw signs. That wasn't just a feeder trail, it was too wide. There's more than one snake in here, amigo." Ray swallowed hard, his bravado faltering. "You sure?" Miguel crouched, running a hand across the trampled soil. He pointed at the faint impressions. "See that? One track runs east, one runs west. That means we got at least 2. Maybe a breeding pair." Ray's stomach nodded. "Breeding?" Miguel's face was grim. "If they lay eggs here, your whole field's done. Whole county'll have a problem." Ray's anger sparked again, fueled by fear. "Then we can't wait. We can't let him settle." Before Miguel could answer, the corn behind them shivered. Both men spun. The stalks bent, parted. The python slid forward, its massive head weaving side to side. It rose slightly, as if to study them. Its body kept coming and coming, longer than either man had expected. Ray's breath hitched. "Sweet Lord." Miguel raised his machete, stepping slightly in front of Ray. "Don't make sudden moves." The snake stopped 10 feet away, tongue flicking. Then, with eerie calm, it coiled in the dirt, its muscles rippling under its scales. It wasn't striking. It was waiting. Ray's voice cracked. "Why is it just sitting there?" Miguel didn't take his eyes off it. "It's not afraid. We're in its nest now." Ray's knuckles whitened on the hoe. "So what do we do?" Miguel's tone was steady, though his eyes never left the snake. "We move. Careful. Slow. Back toward the house. We get higher ground, figure out a plan." Ray shook his head. "No. If we run, it'll follow. It's been circling me all morning. It knows." The python hissed, low and resonant, coils tightening slightly as if to confirm his words. Miguel muttered, "Then we make a stand, but not down here." He glanced upward. Just ahead, a half-broken irrigation rig rose above the corn, a rusted frame left from the old days when sprinklers ran the field. He pointed. "There. We climb. From above, we can see. We can think." Ray hesitated, but the sight of the python shifting its weight decided for him. "Fine. Let's move." They edged sideways, careful steps through the muck. The snake watched, head weaving slowly but not lunging. Reaching the rig, Miguel grabbed the lowest rung and pulled himself up. Go! Ray scrambled after him, the hoe clattering against the metal. They climbed until they were perched halfway up, 15 feet off the ground, breathing hard. Below, the python slid closer. It coiled around the base of the rig, scales rasping against rusted metal. Ray stared down, chest heaving. It's waiting on us. Miguel nodded grimly. Yeah, patient as stone. It knows sooner or later we'll have to come down. The corn rustled again. From the opposite side, another shadow moved. Ray's stomach dropped. Oh no, Miguel's jaw tightened. Told you. There's two. The second python slithered into view, smaller than the first, but still massive, its body thick as Ray's thigh. It joined the first at the base of the rig, the two snakes circling with silent purpose. Ray felt his throat go dry. We're trapped. Miguel's gaze swept the endless rows of green around them. His knuckles whitened on the machete. No, he said quietly. Not trapped, just outnumbered. And beneath them, the corn whispered in the hot breeze, while the pythons coiled patiently, waiting for their chance. The irrigation rig groaned under their weight, rust flaking where their boots had scuffed the metal. Ray wiped the sweat from his brow with a trembling hand and peered down at the coils below. The two pythons circled slowly, their bodies gliding over the damp soil like moving rivers of muscle and scale. Every so often one would lift its head, tongue flicking, then settle again, patient as stone. They ain't leaving, Ray whispered. Miguel didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the endless corn rows stretching into the haze. The sun was climbing now, Pu, shing the heat higher, but the snakes seemed immune. Finally, Miguel muttered, they won't. Not while we're here. Ray gripped the hoe tighter, though up here it felt like a useless stick. So what's the plan? We just sit and rot till they get bored. Miguel shook his head. Pythons don't get bored. They'll wait a day, two, however long it takes. That's how they hunt. They outlast you. Ray cursed under his breath. Well, I ain't sitting here like bait. Miguel turned to him, his expression calm but firm. Listen to me, Ray. You can't treat these things like rattlers or hogs. I've hunted gators, hogs, even a cougar once. You get your shot, you scare it off, it runs. But pythons? They don't scare easy. They only know two things, what they can kill and what they can't. Right now, they're still deciding which one we are. Ray's jaw clenched. Then we show him we ain't the easy kind. Miguel gave a dry laugh, though there was no humor in it. That's the problem with stubborn men. You'd rather fight the devil head-on than admit you might need help. Ray shot him a glare, but said nothing. The truth in Miguel's words stung. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the faint rustle of corn and the occasional scrape of scale against metal. Miguel crouched lower, studying the ground below. Look! Ray followed his gaze. The soil around the base of the rig was disturbed, not just by the snakes circling, but farther out, in a broad patch where the stalks were bent and flattened. What about it? Ray asked. Miguel pointed with his machete. That ain't just a fight mark. That's a wallow, or a nest. Ray frowned. Nest? You mean eggs, Miguel said flatly. I've seen it before, down near Big Cypress. Big female will find a warm patch, guard it for weeks. Hundreds of eggs, if she's healthy. Once they hatch, you'll have a whole army of these bastards crawling through your corn. Ray's stomach turned. Hundreds, Miguel nodded grimly. And they don't just eat chickens. Dogs, deer, calves, even kids if they're unlucky enough. I've heard stories. Ray's knuckles whitened on the hoe. Not on my land. Not here. The words came out hard, but beneath them was fear. He pictured his little niece, Emma, who sometimes played hide-and-seek in these same rows when her family visited. He pictured her small legs vanishing into coils that big. No, he said again, voice shaking. We end this before it starts. Miguel sighed, leaning back against the rusty frame. I don't disagree, but we gotta be smart. You can't just run and swing and then tell me how. Miguel thought for a long moment. First thing, we need firepower. A machete and a hoe won't cut it. Shotgun, rifle, something heavy. Otherwise, it's suicide. Ray looked down at the circling pythons. How we supposed to get to the house with them sitting there? Miguel's gaze tracked the snakes, his jaw working. We wait for a chance. Or we make one. Ray shook his head. Every minute we wait, more of my hens get eaten. Maybe more snakes join in. I ain't just sitting here. Miguel gave him a sharp look. You run out there half-cocked, you'll just be another meal. You think they're just wandering? No, this whole patch, they've claimed it. This ain't your cornfield anymore, Ray. It's theirs. The words hit hard. Ray stared at the green walls, the endless rows that had fed his family for years. To think of them as stolen, as belonging to the snakes, filled him with rage. Over my dead body, he said. Miguel's eyes softened just slightly. That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid, amigo. The larger python shifted suddenly, sliding closer to the flattened patch Miguel had pointed out. It coiled there, almost protectively, its massive body covering a mound of broken stalks. Ray's breath caught. That's it, ain't it? That's where the eggs are. Miguel's expression hardened. Yeah, she's guarded. Ray leaned forward, voice urgent. If we kill her, it ends. Right? Miguel shook his head slowly. No, kill her, and the other one stays. Maybe more come. Eggs are still there. You think we can stomp out hundreds of hatchlings one by one? He spat over the side of the rig. Nah, you kill the nest. Fire. Burn it out. That's the only way. Ray's eyes widened. Burn my corn. Miguel met his gaze evenly. Better ashes than snakes. Ray's mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to argue, to shout, but deep down he knew Miguel was right. The thought of setting fire to his field made his chest ache. But the alternative, the thought of his land crawling with snakes, was worse. He turned away, jaw tight. Staring at the horizon, he couldn't see through the rows. Minutes crawled by, the snakes still circling below. Sweat ran down Ray's back, soaking his shirt. He shifted, uneasy, and the rig creaked in protest. Miguel shot him a warning glance. Easy. Rust like this don't hold forever. Ray muttered. Feels like a damn cage. Miguel chuckled softly. Better a cage than a coffin. Despite himself, Ray let out a breath that was half a laugh. Hell of a pep talk. Miguel's eyes stayed sharp, scanning the green. You wanted the truth. Ray's grip tightened on the hoe again. Yeah, guess I did. The corn shifted suddenly, a long stalk snapping somewhere beyond the nest. Both men stiffened. Another python. Ray's throat went dry. There's more. Miguel cursed under his breath in Spanish. I was afraid of this. From the shadows of the rows, a third body slid into view, smaller than the other two, but still monstrous. It slithered past the nest mound, disappearing deeper into the corn. Ray's voice shook. How many are we dealing with? Miguel's answer was quiet, heavy, enough to know this ain't just a raid for chickens. They picked this place. They're settling in. Ray's gut clenched. Then we can't just wait. We can't. We gotta act now. Miguel's gaze was steady, though his jaw was tight. Then we'll need help. Folks who know how to handle this. Ray shook his head stubbornly. This is my land, Miguel. My fight. Miguel leaned close, his voice sharp. And if you make it just yours, you'll die out here, and your farm will still belong to them. You want to protect your land? Swallow your pride. Call in reinforcements. Python hunters. Volunteers. Whoever you trust. Ray glared at him, chest heaving. He wanted to argue, but then the larger snake shifted again, its massive body rolling protectively over the nest. The sheer weight of it made the ground tremble. For the first time that morning, Ray felt the edge of his anger break, leaving only fear. He nodded once, curt and grim. All right, we'll call. Miguel exhaled slowly. Good. Then maybe, just maybe, we've got a chance. Below, the snakes settled again, coils layered like living chains around the nest. Above them, the two men waited, the rig groaning softly in the heat, trapped in the green heart of a battlefield that wasn't theirs anymore. The midday sun burned straight down, baking the rusted rig beneath them. Ray shifted his weight for the 100th time, the sharp edges of the metal digging into his thighs. His patience, never long to begin with, was thinning to nothing. They're still down there, he muttered, peering through the slats. Miguel, crouched with his back to a support beam, didn't even glance up. They'll stay as long as they need. That's their nature. Ray cursed. Nature's got no right to squat on my land. Miguel finally lifted his eyes, calm but stern. Listen to yourself. You think this corn is yours because you planted it. But to them, it's just cover. Hunting ground. You gotta understand, Ray, the world don't run by our rules. Ray jabbed the hoe downward at the circling coils, frustration bubbling over. The snakes didn't even flinch. So what? We just right up here. I've had enough. I'm making a break for it. Miguel's eyes hardened. You'll die. Better dying on my feet than rot in like a crow baited on a fence post. Think hombre, Miguel said sharply, voice low but cutting. You run down there, they'll be on you before you take 5 steps. That ain't bravery. That's suicide. Ray glared at him, the muscles in his jaw working. You don't know what it's like watching your land get stolen inch by inch. I ain't letting it happen. Miguel leaned in, his voice quieter now, almost weary. You think I don't know about loss? I had a ranch once, near Homestead. Hurricane Andrew took it. One night gone, everything I'd built. I know what it feels like to see your world swallowed. But I learned something, Ray. Sometimes you fight smart, not fast. The words hung between them. Ray opened his mouth to retort, then shut it again. For a moment, the anger in his eyes dimmed to something rawer, more wounded. Then the corn shifted. Both men snapped their heads toward the sound. The stalks about 30 yards out bent sharply, something heavy plowing through them. A moment later, the smaller python they'd spotted earlier reemerged, its body weaving effortlessly between the rows. But it wasn't circling this time. It was climbing. Jesus, Ray hissed. It's coming up. The snake lifted its head, tongue flicking, and began to wind its body around one of the rig's support beams. Rust groaned under the sudden strain. Miguel rose instantly, machete drawn. This is it. Get ready. Ray's heart hammered in his chest. He raised the hoe like a spear, sweat dripping down his temples. If it makes it up here, it won't, Miguel cut in. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the truth. He wasn't sure. The python's body thickened as it coiled higher. Its scales scraped the metal, a sickening sound that made Ray's teeth ache. Ray jabbed downward with the hoe, catching its flank. The blow landed, but the snake barely flinched, only tightening its grip on the beam. Hit the head. Miguel barked, swinging his machete. The blade scraped sparks off the rig, missing by inches as the snake recoiled. Ray lunged again, this time connecting with the flat of the hoe against the serpent's skull. The python's head snapped sideways, jaws opening in silent fury. For a moment, Ray felt triumph. Then the snake lashed out, striking the hoe with enough force to rip it from his hands. The tool clattered down into the dirt below. Damn it, Ray shouted, backing away. Miguel didn't hesitate. With a grunt, he swung his machete in a wide arc. The blade bit deep into the snake's side, splitting scales, but it wasn't a killing blow. The python writhed, letting out a dry hiss that rattled through the air. It lunged again, jaws snapping shut inches from Miguel's leg. He leapt back, nearly losing his footing on the slick metal. Hold steady, Miguel. Don't let it wrap you. Ray grabbed a loose piece of rusted piping, hefting it like a bat. When the python's head rose again, he swung with every ounce of strength. The metal connected with a sickening crack. The snake recoiled, stunned, but only for a heartbeat. Then it lunged higher, nearly level with the platform now. Ray's stomach dropped. It's not stopping. Before he could finish, the larger python below shifted. With terrifying speed, it began climbing another support beam opposite the first. Miguel's eyes went wide. There's 2 of them coming up. The rig shook violently under their combined weight. Metal bolts groaned, dust and rust showering down. They'll tear the whole damn thing down. Ray shouted. Miguel's jaw clenched. Then we kill him fast, or we go down with it. The smaller python's head breached the platform, jaws gaping. Miguel slashed, catching it across the snout. Blood sprayed, dark and slick. The snake thrashed, but its momentum drove it onto the rig fully, its coils whipping like living rope. Ray swung the pipe again, catching its body, but the snake surged toward him. In an instant, its coils lashed his leg, tightening with horrifying strength. Ray, Miguel. Ray cried out, trying to pry it loose, but the pressure was crushing. His vision spotted as pain lanced through his thigh. Get off! Miguel lunged, hacking furiously with a machete. The blade bit once, twice, and on the third strike it cut deep enough to sever part of the coil. The snake shrieked, or what passed for a shriek, and loosened just enough for Ray to yank free, gasping. But the second python was almost upon them now, its massive head rising, eyes cold and unblinking. The rig gave a terrible groan. "Miguel!" Ray panted, clutching his bruised leg. "This thing's coming down." Miguel's gaze darted around, calculating. Then he spotted the irrigation hose still dangling from the rig, its end trailing down into the dirt. Ray grabbed that hose. Ray blinked. What good's a hose against? "Do it," Miguel barked. Ray scrambled for it, tugging the heavy rubber line up. Miguel seized it and with practiced speed, looped it around the smaller python's neck just behind the jaws. He braced his boots against the rig and pulled with all his might. The snake writhed, constricted, its head thrashing violently, but Miguel held on. "Now! Hit it!" Ray raised the pipe and brought it down on the trapped head. Once, twice, 3 brutal strikes. Bone cracked, and at last the python went limp, sliding partially off the rig. Ray stood shaking, chest heaving. God almighty! But the victory was short-lived. The larger python was nearly level with them, its coils thicker than a man's waist. The nest guardian. Miguel's face went pale. That one, it's the mother. The rig shuddered violently, bolts snapping one by one. Ray staggered, eyes wild. "It's taking us down." Miguel grabbed his arm. "Then we jump now." Ray hesitated, staring at the monster rising before them. Its head loomed closer, tongue flicking, eyes fixed on them with cold hunger. "Ray!" Miguel roared. Together they leapt. They hit the dirt hard, the impact knocking the breath from Ray's lungs. He rolled, coughing, vision spinning. Beside him, Miguel pushed to his knees, machete still clutched tight. Behind them, the rig collapsed in a screech of tearing metal, slamming into the soil with a thunderous crash. The dead python slid free, but the mother remained coiled among the wreckage, unharmed. It lifted its head, towering above the corn, a living nightmare against the sunlit sky. Ray scrambled to his feet, clutching Miguel's arm. "We can't fight that. Not like this." Miguel's face was grim, but his voice was steady. "Then we run. To the house. Get the shotgun. Get fire." Ray swallowed hard, his throat dry. "And if it follows?" Miguel's eyes never left the serpent as it began to slide toward them. "Then we make our stand." Without another word, they turned and plunged into the rows, the corn whipping against their faces, the sound of scales on stalks following close behind. Ray's boots pounded the dirt as he tore through the corn rows, stalks whipping his face and arms. Behind him, the sound of scales tearing through dry husks sent adrenaline burning hot through his chest. He didn't dare look back. "Keep going," Miguel barked a few steps behind, machete still gripped tight in his hand. "Don't stop." Ray's lungs burned, but the farmhouse loomed ahead, its white paint flaking in the Florida sun. Relief flickered, but it was short-lived. The rustling behind them wasn't fading. The python was keeping pace. They burst from the corn into the open yard. Chickens scattered, clucking in terror. The henhouse door swung wide. Half the birds already gone, the air reeking of blood and feathers. Ray skidded to a stop by the porch, bent double and gasping. "God almighty, it's still coming." Miguel spun, machete raised. His chest heaved, but his eyes stayed sharp. Inside. "Move!" Ray scrambled up the steps, shoving the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. They stumbled into the kitchen, the air cooler, but heavy with the scent of old grease and dust. Ray dropped the iron pipe he still carried, the clang echoing like a gunshot. Miguel locked the door, sliding the old bolt. He pressed his back to it, listening. The house was quiet except for their ragged breathing. Ray staggered to a cabinet and yanked it open. Empty. Another. Cans of beans, jars of pickled okra, but no gun. "Where's your shotgun?" Miguel demanded. Ray's eyes darted around the room, panic rising. "Hall closet. Or the barn. I don't remember where I left it." Miguel's jaw tightened. "You don't remember? You're telling me you got a nest of snakes in your field, and you don't know where your gun is." Ray's voice cracked. "I didn't plan on fighting a damn war, Miguel. They froze as a low creak rolled through the walls. The chickens outside screamed, feathers flying past the window. Something heavy moved in the yard. Miguel whispered, "It's here." Ray's mouth went dry. He tiptoed to the window, peeling back the curtain just an inch. The corn swayed, then split. The mother python's massive head emerged, glistening in the sun. She slid into the open yard, coils rolling like waves. She was too big for the henhouse now. She wanted them. Ray stumbled back. Jesus Christ. It followed us. Miguel grabbed his arm, dragging him down the hall. "Find a gun. Now." They tore into the hall closet. Boots, coats, a busted vacuum, but no shotgun. Ray's face went red with frustration. Damn it, damn it." Miguel's tone sharpened. "Think, Ray. You said maybe the barn." Ray nodded, though his throat tightened at the thought. "Yeah, I used it on hogs last month. Probably left it hanging by the stall." Miguel peeked through the back window. The barn squatted just beyond the yard, its doors cracked open. Between them and safety lay 30 yards of open ground and the python. Ray swore, "We'll never make it." Miguel's eyes narrowed. "Then we distract her." A loud thump shook the house. Dust rained from the ceiling. The walls creaked as something heavy scraped against them. Ray's heart stuttered. "It's climbing the damn porch." Miguel grabbed Ray's shoulders, forcing his gaze steady. "Listen to me. You're faster than I am. You make for the barn, grab the gun. I'll hold her here." Ray shook his head violently. "Like hell. You'll get crushed." Miguel's eyes blazed. "You think I don't know that? But one of us has to draw her off, or we both die unarmed." Ray's hands trembled. He hated the truth in those words. "Why you?" Miguel gave a tight smile. "Because I've fought beasts like this before. And because your farm, your family, it's yours to protect. I'm just passing through." Before Ray could argue, the porch boards groaned. A shadow stretched across the kitchen window. The python's head pressed against the glass, tongue flicking. "Now!" Miguel hissed. Ray bolted for the back door, flinging it wide and sprinting across the yard. He heard Miguel's roar behind him, a guttural shout meant to pull the snake's attention. The air split with the crash of breaking wood. The python slammed against the house, glass shattering, splinters flying. Miguel swung his machete from the doorway, hacking at the coils forcing their way inside. Ray didn't look back. His legs pumped, pain burning through the bruise on his thigh from earlier, but he kept running. The barn loomed closer, doors yawning wide like salvation. He dove inside, the cool shadow swallowing him. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight. "Gun, gun," he muttered frantically, racing along the stalls. He spotted it at last, his old 12-gauge propped against a beam, oiled rags still draped over the stock. He snatched it up, fumbling for the box of shells on the shelf above. His hands shook so badly he spilled half of them onto the dirt. From a yard, Miguel's voice bellowed again, cut short by a sickening crash. Ray's blood iced over. He shoved 2 shells into the chamber and sprinted back to the doors. The sight froze him in his tracks. The python had forced half its body through the key. Chin wall, the frame splintered wide. Miguel was pinned against the porch post, machete still in hand, as the serpent coiled tighter around him. His face was twisted in agony, his ribs creaking audibly under the pressure. "Miguel!" Ray screamed. Miguel's eyes found him. Pain and defiance burned there. He shouted hoarsely, "Shoot it! Now!" Ray raised the shotgun, heart hammering. He had a clean line on the snake's midsection, but Miguel was locked in the coils. One wrong shot, and the python's head darted toward him, mouth gaping. Instinct took over. Ray pulled the trigger. The blast echoed like thunder. The serpent recoiled, blood spraying across the porch. Miguel sagged in the loosened coils, gasping desperately for air. Ray pumped the shotgun, fired again. Another spray of blood, another furious hiss. The python writhed, tearing boards from the house in its frenzy. "Miguel, move!" Ray shouted, charging forward. Miguel staggered free, collapsing onto the porch. Ray stood over him, shotgun raised, firing into the python's body again and again until the chamber clicked empty. For a moment, silence. Only Ray's ragged breathing filled the air. The python's body lay half in the house, half out, blood pooling dark on the dirt. It twitched, coil spasming, then went still. Ray lowered the shotgun, chest heaving. We killed it. Miguel coughed, clutching his ribs. Don't count on it. Ray blinked. What do you mean? Miguel looked up at him, face pale with pain. That was just one. Remember the nest. Remember the others. As if on cue, from deep in the cornfield, a long, low rustle rolled toward them. A sound like dry thunder. Ray's stomach turned to ice. More. Miguel gritted his teeth, forcing himself upright. They're not stopping now. You've stirred the whole nest. Ray clutched the shotgun tighter, eyes darting toward the trembling corn. The horizon seemed to ripple as more shapes slithered unseen through the rows. He whispered hoarsely, "What the hell have we brought down on ourselves?" Miguel's gaze was grim, voice steady despite his pain. "A war, Ray, and it ain't over." The corn rustled louder, closer, surrounding the farmstead. The two men stood on the ruined porch, battered but armed, as the sound of scales grew into a chorus. The house was no longer safe. Night fell fast over the Florida cornfields, a velvet black curtain broken only by the faint shimmer of moonlight on the ruined porch. Ray and Miguel had barricaded the house as best they could, dragging furniture to block shattered windows and stacking boards where the walls had splintered. Ray sat on the floor, shotgun cradled in his lap, eyes darting to every shadow. Blood from the python's smear streaked the doorway and porch. The air reeked of iron, sweat, and wet earth. Miguel leaned against the kitchen counter, machete resting across his knees, his ribs still bruised but refusing to show weakness. "You think it'll rest?" Ray shook his head, jaw tight. "Ain't in their nature. They wait. Patient. They're hunting us now." Miguel exhaled slowly. "Then we gotta be smarter than patient. Outlast them, or we don't last at all." Ray glanced toward the corn. Shadows moved there, long and curling, like smoke. Miguel shook his head. "Then we gotta make the rest ourselves. Molotovs, fire, anything." Ray's stomach sank. "Burn my house down?" Miguel's eyes were cold. Better ashes than being eaten alive. The first strike came just after midnight. A low, wet thud shook the floor, followed by the scraping hiss of metal against wood. Ray jumped to his feet, shotgun raised, heart hammering. "Window," he shouted. Miguel grabbed the nearest chair, wedging it under the sash as a brace. "Don't let it in." The window rattled violently. Outside, a flash of patterned scales glimmered in the moonlight. The python's head pressed against the glass, tongue flicking. Ray fired. The blast cracked the air, glass shattering inward. The python recoiled, body writhing violently, then slammed again. Miguel swung his machete through the open pane, catching a coil, slicing with a hiss. The snake thrashed back, crushing the board under its weight. Ray pumped the shotgun again, firing 2 more rounds. Sparks and shards rained down, but the beast remained, eyes unblinking, coils tightening. Ray backed away, chest heaving. "We ain't gonna last long like this." Miguel's lips pressed tight. "We adapt, Ray. We survive. That's all that matters right now." The second python emerged from the yard, larger than the first, gliding silently through the shadows. Its head rose, tongue flicking, eyes reflecting the faint light. Ray's stomach nodded. "Shit, 2 of them, and probably more." Miguel nodded grimly. "Exactly what I feared." Ray's mind raced. "We can't fight him all with 5 shells and a machete." Miguel's eyes narrowed. "Then we make him fight the house. Keep him outside. Let him into traps." Ray's brows furrowed. "Traps? Like what?" Miguel's gaze swept the pantry. Old kerosene cans, wooden crates, nails, rope, like this. If they get close, we don't just shoot. We burn. We crush. Anything they touch that we can control. Make it deadly for them. Ray blinked. "Molotovs?" Miguel's lips twitched in a grim half-smile. "Florida cornfield snakes don't play with fire. They die by it. You want to survive, you'll light that field up if you gotta." Another thud, this time from the back door. The boards groaned. The smell of wet scales entered the house, musty and thick. Ray's hand shook as he clutched the shotgun. Miguel gritted his teeth. "They're getting clever. They figure we're weak points." Ray swallowed. "Weak? I ain't weak." Miguel's gaze was steady. "Maybe not. But scared men make mistakes. And right now, fear's our ally and our enemy. Use it. Ray glanced at the shadows moving through the broken kitchen window. His fists tightened around the gun. We gonna die in here? Miguel shook his head. Not if we move smart. Remember the barn, remember the rig? Don't let him corner you. Use the house. Ligi, control the fight. Ray's lips pressed tight. Control the fight. Right. Hours passed, the night crawling slowly. Every rustle outside made Ray flinch. Every scrape of scale against the walls made him jump. The house trembled under the weight of the monsters testing it. At one point, a shadow rose taller than the window, pushing against the door with all its weight. Miguel slashed with the machete, blood spraying across the wood. The snake hissed, a guttural, wet sound, then recoiled. Ray fired 2 more rounds. Sparks and chunks of wood flew. One of the snakes shrieked in rage. Miguel turned toward him. Keep count, Ray. Every shot matters. Don't waste. Don't panic. Ray nodded, sweat running down his face. I can't believe I'm fighting snakes like this on my own land. Miguel's eyes softened just slightly. Ain't just your land anymore, amigo. It's survival. Your life. Your farm. Both can wait until dawn. Tonight, we fight or we die. Around 2 in the morning, a flicker of fire appeared. Ray had managed to ignite a kerosene-soaked rag and toss it out a window toward the first python. It hissed violently, coiling and recoiling as the flames licked at its scales. Miguel watched closely, machete ready. Good. Keep it coming. Light every path it can use. Ray worked frantically, tossing flaming rags, knocking over wooden crates, creating small bursts of fire along the perimeter. The snakes recoiled, avoiding the fire, circling cautiously. They hate the fire, Miguel said. Use it. Farsimbeck. Ray's arms ached, lungs burning. Feels like fighting shadows. Miguel's eyes never left the windows. Shadows can kill if you let him. We decide when they die. By 3 in the morning, exhaustion weighed on them. The house was battered, windows shattered, walls cracked, but the snakes were pushed back to the yard's edge. Ray slumped against the counter, shaking. We can't keep this up. I'm done. Miguel clapped a hand on his shoulder. No, you're not. You'll survive because you got heart, and because I won't let you die. Ray's lips pressed tight. Heart don't stop the pain. Miguel grinned faintly, wincing at a rib twinge. Heart don't have to. It just has to keep going long enough to see the sun rise. And that's what we're doing. From the cornfield came a low hiss, growing louder, sharper, deliberate. Another python, or maybe the same, regrouping. Ray froze. They're not done. Miguel nadie grimly. No, not by a long shot. But we got tonight. That's what counts. Dawn gives us options. Ray's eyes flicked toward the broken porch and scorched yard. Options, right? Miguel leaned close. Remember this, Ray. You got a farm, a life, people depending on you. We make it to sunrise, we still got a shot. Tonight, we survive. Tomorrow, we fight smart. Ray swallowed hard. Smart, not crazy. Miguel's lips twitched. Depend on who you ask. The night stretched on. The sounds of the snakes testing, circling, hissing against the weakened walls. Fire flickered in patches outside, smoke rising into the black sky. Ray kept pumping shells into the shotgun, checking windows and listening. Every shadow, every scrape, every hiss made the hairs on his neck stand on end. But the fire, the barricades, and Miguel's presence kept death at bay. Somewhere deep in the corn, the nest waited, unseen but present. They were not out of danger. They had survived the night so far, but only just. And in the quiet moments between strikes, Ray realized it. The fight wasn't just for the land, or for the hens, or even for their lives. The fight was to reclaim their home from the relentless, patient, and deadly hunters in the green. The snakes were out there, circling still, and the war was far from over. The sun broke over the horizon, pale and weak, spilling light across the battered farmhouse and scorched yard. Ray rubbed his aching eyes, chest heaving. His arms were numb from firing the shotgun through the night, and his legs ached from the sprint through the corn earlier. Miguel leaned against the counter, machete still clutched tightly, eyes scanning the perimeter. They had survived the night, but both men knew it had been a temporary victory. "Quiet," Miguel muttered, motioning with his hand. "Too quiet." Ray squinted through the broken kitchen window. The cornfield beyond shimmered in the morning heat. The snakes had retreated for now, but the tracks and flattened stalks told a story. More than just one mother and one rogue male. The nest was still there, unseen but alive. Ray exhaled. "We can't keep this up. I'm beat." Miguel's gaze was steady. "You're not alone anymore. Reinforcements are coming. You called the volunteer crew yesterday. They'll be here soon." Ray's jaw tightened. "You sure?" Miguel nodded. "They'll have guns, traps, fire. We won't have to fight alone." The distant rumble of a truck broke the tense quiet. Dust rose on the dirt road beyond the field. Ray's stomach clenched. "Sounds like backup," Miguel said, pushing himself upright despite the lingering pain in his ribs. Ray bolted to the window. Sure enough, a convoy of 3 trucks rumbled down the road. Python Challenge volunteers, heavily armed and alert, dismounted quickly, assessing the property. "Finally," Ray exclaimed. "Praise God." Miguel smirked, though the effort wrenched pain through his side. "Don't celebrate yet. They're good, but this isn't over." Ray nodded, swallowing hard. "Right, we still got snakes out there." The volunteers approached cautiously. Their leader, a tall, wiry man with sun-leathered skin and a weathered face, raised a hand. "Ray?" "Miguel," he called. Ray waved frantically. "Over here." Through the back, the volunteers fanned out, rifles and poles at the ready. One knelt by the scorched yard, studying the flattened stalks. "Looks like you had yourself a party last night," he said grimly. Ray laughed weakly, chest still tight. "Party's the last word I'd use." Miguel stepped forward. "We got a nest nearby. Mother, at least 2 others. We held them off, but they're still out there." The leader nodded. "Then we'll do what we came for. Clear them out, control the nest, and make sure they don't breed again. You got firepower." Ray gestured to the shotgun, half-empty shells in hand. 5 left, and whatever we can improvise." The volunteer leader nodded. "Good. You 2 stay close. Follow my lead. Don't get ahead of us." Ray turned to Miguel, whispering, "Think they'll be enough?" Miguel shook his head slowly. "They're trained. We got numbers now. But snakes, they don't fight fair." Ray's stomach nodded. "I don't even want fair. I just want alive." Miguel's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. "Then you focus. Follow orders. That's all you can do." The volunteers fanned out, moving cautiously toward the corn. Ray followed behind, shotgun ready, heart hammering with every step. The corn, once a familiar backdrop to his farm, now seemed alien, dark, twisting, alive. One of the volunteers crouched near a flattened patch of stalks. "This is fresh," he muttered. "They were here last night. Mother's close." Ray's chest tightened. "I know. We barely survived." Miguel whispered, "Stay alert. They've seen us, smelled us, and they're smart. They'll try to herd us into a trap." The volunteer leader held up a hand, motioning them to stop. The corn ahead moved subtly, stalks swaying though no wind blew. "They're watching," he said quietly. "Coils are close. We can't see the whole nest yet." Ray swallowed hard. "How many do you think?" "Enough to kill us if we make a wrong move," the leader answered grimly. Suddenly, the mother python's head burst from the corn, massive and glinting in the sun. Its tongue flicked, tasting the air, eyes locked on the intruders. "Open fire," the leader shouted. Rifles cracked, echoing across the field. Muzzle flashes lit up the stalks. The snake recoiled but remained. Ray fired the shotgun, hitting the mother in the flank. It hissed and lunged, striking toward the first volunteer. Miguel swung his machete, slicing the air where the head struck, keeping it away. Chaos erupted. The corn seemed alive with movement. 2 more pythons, smaller but no less deadly, slithered forward from hidden patches. Ray felt adrenaline spike. "They're everywhere." Miguel gritted his teeth. "Stay with us. Don't get isolated." One volunteer attempted to flank the nest, but a coil whipped from the corn, striking him and sending him sprawling. "Careful, Miguel shouted. They'll hit from anywhere." Ray pumped another shell into the shotgun, firing at the largest visible coil. Sparks of blood flew, but the snake wasn't finished. Its eyes glinted, calculating. Another python lunged at Miguel. He spun, machete slicing through scales, but the weight forced him back. Ray's mind raced. He couldn't let Miguel get trapped. "Here!" he shouted, firing into the coil. The blast staggered the snake, loosening its grip. Miguel shoved forward, freeing himself, eyes blazing. "Good shot," Miguel said, voice gruff but approving. Ray nodded, heart hammering. "We're not done yet." The volunteers regrouped, forming a semicircle around the corn edge. Molotovs and torches were tossed, creating a fire line to drive the snakes back. The heat scorched the air, smoke curling over the stalks. Ray gritted his teeth, swinging the shotgun like a cudgel. Every movement was precise, defensive. Every shot mattered. The snakes hissed and struck, but the volunteers' combined strategy forced them to retreat, slithering back toward the hidden nest. Miguel pointed. "There, that flattened patch, Mother's nest." The volunteers fired at the mound, forcing the snakes to coil defensively. One threw a torch, igniting the outer stalks. Smoke billowed, fire crackling along the rows. Ray watched in grim fascination. The snakes writhed, thrashing violently, but they were confined. The nest, though still alive, was being neutralized. Finally, after what felt like hours, the snakes retreated deeper into the corn, their hisses fading into the distance. The fire had created a temporary barrier. Ray slumped against Miguel. We did it." Miguel shook his head slowly. "Not all of it. We contained them, for now. But nests like that, they come back if we don't destroy the eggs." Ray swallowed hard. "How many eggs are we talking?" Miguel's eyes darkened. "Hundreds. Could have been thousands by the end of the season. If we hadn't called for help." His voice trailed, the thought hanging. Ray nodded, chest tight. "Yeah, I owe you, Miguel. You stayed. You fought." Miguel gave a faint smile, grim but proud. "We fight together, Ray. That's how you survive a war like this." The volunteers moved cautiously, marking the nest location. Ray and Miguel helped wherever they could, carrying fuel, lighting torches, and keeping watch. Ray glanced at the corn, still thick and dark. "They'll come back." Miguel's jaw tightened. "Maybe. But today we've pushed them back. Today we've survived. That's the start. Tomorrow, we finish what we started. And we make sure your farm stays yours." Ray's gaze swept the scorched yard, the burned stalks, and the distant shadows of the retreating snakes. For the first time since the attack began, he allowed himself a breath of relief. Not victory, not yet, but survival. And for Ray and Miguel, that was enough. For now, dawn broke over the scorched edges of Ray's cornfield. Smoke still lingered in the air, curling upward from the burned stalks where the volunteers had held the snakes at bay overnight. But the victory was fragile. Every man present knew it. Somewhere in the shadowed depths of the corn, the nest remained alive, and the snakes were patient. Ray adjusted the shotgun strap over his shoulder, feeling every ache from the previous night. His leg throbbed where the mother python had crushed him against the rig. But there was no time to linger. Miguel approached, machete in hand, eyes scanning the field. "They'll be back, and they won't wait for us to get ready." Ray nodded grimly. "So we finished this today. No half measures." Miguel gave a faint smile. "Exactly. Today the cornfield ends, one way or another." The volunteers gathered near the farmhouse, rifles ready, torches in hand. The leader, a tall, wiry man with sun-leathered skin, gave instructions. "We move in slow, coordinated. Keep lines tight. Don't get separated. Watch for movement. The nest will fight back. Every coil, every head, they're trained killers." Ray swallowed hard. "They're just snakes." Miguel's eyes flicked to the corn, narrowing. "Just snakes? You call hundreds of pounds of muscle, steel-hard scales, and unblinking hunger just snakes?" Ray exhaled sharply, nodding. "Right, not just snakes." They approached the edge of the field. The scorched stalks from last night's fire were still smoldering, smoke curling up in the morning light. The volunteers fanned out, carefully stepping over burned stalks, eyes darting for movement. Miguel whispered, "Stay low. They'll ambush from anywhere, even from below." Ray's heart hammered as he followed, shotgun ready. Every step into the field made the soil crunch underfoot, echoing far-tee. Oh, loudly. One volunteer signaled ahead. Fresh tracks. Mother's path. She's not far. Ray glanced at Miguel. So it's her, still guarding the eggs. Miguel nodded. And she's not alone. Other pythons will be with her. We're walking into a trap. But it's the only way to end this. The corn thickened, shadows folding over them like dark waves. Rustling came from all directions, low, deliberate, almost intelligent. Ray's palms were slick with sweat. A sudden crack of movement made him spin. A massive python, coiled tight, lunged from behind a stalk, striking at a volunteer. He yelped, barely dodging as the beast's head slammed the ground where he'd just stood. "Watch your six," Miguel shouted, slashing with his machete to push the snake back. Ray fired the shotgun, hitting the coil. Sparks of blood flew, but the snake didn't retreat fully. It hissed, an almost human scream of fury, before retreating into the shadowed corn. A volunteer groaned. "They're everywhere." Miguel's jaw tightened. "Exactly. Keep moving. Keep pressure." They reached the nest at last. The ground was flattened into a wide, circular mound. Broken stalks and the remains of scorched earth surrounded it. The mother python lay atop the mound, coils thick and powerful, eyes glinting with intelligence. Around her, at least 4 smaller pythons slithered among the corn, protecting the eggs. Ray's stomach turned. Hundreds of eggs, right there. Miguel's voice was quiet but firm. "And every single one of those will grow into this if we don't act fast." The volunteer leader spoke up. "Molotovs, fire, smoke. Force them away from the nest before we finish the mother." Ray nodded, gripping the shotgun. "And if they strike before we get the fire?" Miguel's eyes locked on him. "Then you fight, Ray. Fight like your life depends on it, because it does." They moved cautiously forward. The first torch was thrown, hissing as flames licked the edges of the nest. The smaller pythons shrieked in panic, slithering back, coils thrashing. Ray fired the shotgun, hitting a fleeing snake mid-stride. The impact sent it crashing into a stalk, which snapped under its weight. Miguel slashed at another with a machete, forcing it to retreat into the smoke. "Keep it contained," the volunteer leader shouted. "Don't let any reach the corn rows outside the nest." Ray's pulse thundered. His eyes flicked between the smoke, the mother, and the fleeing pythons. "There are too many." Miguel stepped forward, machete swinging in wide arcs. "Then we make the ones we can count." The mother python hissed, lunging at Miguel. He sidestepped, swinging the machete, catching her jaw. Sparks of scale flew, but the beast recoiled and struck again, faster this time. Ray fired the shotgun, blasting into her midsection. She shrieked violently, thrashing violently across the scorched ground. The smaller pythons regrouped, trying to circle them in. Ray's heart pounded. "Miguel, they're flanking us." Miguel's eyes narrowed. "Don't get cornered." One volunteer hurled a kerosene-soaked rag into the corn beside them, igniting another burst of fire. The snakes hissed, retreating from the flames, coils lashing at the scorched ground but avoiding the fire. Ray's chest heaved as he pumped another shell. "We were pushing him back." Miguel gritted his teeth, swinging the machete again. "Don't celebrate yet. That mother's still strong. The eggs are still alive. Hit her now, hit her hard." Ray nodded grimly. He raised the shotgun, aimed, and fired point blank into the mother's side. She shrieked again, thrashing violently, then writhed atop the scorched mound, her coils slowly weakening. The smaller pythons hissed and retreated further into the corn, disappearing into shadowed stalks. Smoke and fire engulfed the nest, the flames crackling and sending thick black smoke into the sky. Ray and Miguel moved cautiously, keeping the mother in sight. The volunteer leader motioned them closer. "Final push," he said. "Make sure all eggs are destroyed. Burn the mound, scatter the rest." Ray glanced down at the hundreds of eggs, pale and glistening. He picked up a torch, hesitating for a fraction of a second. Miguel's eyes locked on him. "Do it, Ray," he said softly, "or they'll rise again." Ray exhaled, then hurled the torch into the mound. Flames engulfed the eggs instantly, sending a thick cloud of smoke and shrieking echoes of the mother python thrashing. The mother roared one last time, coils thrashing violently in panic. Miguel moved in, machete swinging, hacking through the final constricted coils until the beast lay still, smoke curling off its scales. Ray sank to his knees, exhausted, heart hammering. The fire crackled, consuming the nest and the remaining eggs. The cornfield beyond remained dark and tense, but the immediate threat was neutralized. Miguel leaned heavily on his machete. It's done. For now. Ray swallowed hard. For now. God, there were so many. So many. Miguel's voice was quiet but steady. We did what we had to. That's all we could do. You survived. Your farm survives. That counts. Ray's chest heaved. I couldn't have done it without you, Miguel. Not without you. Miguel gave a faint, proud smile. And you would have done the same for me. We fight together, Ray. That's how you survive a war like this. The volunteers moved carefully through the burned edges, ensuring all eggs were destroyed, fire spread properly, and the remaining smaller pythons were either driven away or killed. Ray glanced at the cornfield, blackened patches still smoking. It's over, right? Miguel shook his head slowly. Not completely. Nests like this, they're rare, but they adapt. They hide. They'll come back if we let our guard down. Ray swallowed, chest tight. Then we stay ready. Always. Miguel's lips twitched. Exactly. Always ready. By mid-morning, the fire had burned the nest entirely. The scorched earth smoldered under the rising sun. The remaining snakes were gone, fleeing deeper into the swamps and unseen parts of the corn. Ray stood in the burned field, hands on his hips, shotgun lowered. His chest ached, his legs shook, but the adrenaline lingered, humming through his veins. Miguel clapped him on the shoulder. Your farm is yours again. But remember, today we survived, not conquered. Ray nodded slowly, eyes scanning the horizon. The cornfield was quiet now, deceptively peaceful. But he knew, deep down, the war might never truly be over. For now, though, he had survived. And that, for Ray and Miguel, was enough. The sun hung low in the late afternoon sky, its golden light spilling over the charred edges of Ray's cornfield. Smoke still rose and thin, twisting ribbons from the scorched earth where the nest had burned the previous day. Ray's hands were blackened with soot, his shirt damp with sweat, but the air felt still, quiet, almost peaceful. He stepped over the blackened remnants of stalks, boots crunching softly in the ash. The smell of smoke and scorched vegetation filled his nostrils, but beneath it was another smell, the faint musk of python bodies. Even in death, their presence lingered. Miguel walked beside him, machete sheathed now, eyes scanning the field, alert as always. Quiet doesn't mean safe, he said, voice low, almost a whisper. Cornfield's still alive with him somewhere. We just put a pause on it. Ray exhaled, shoulders sagging. I can't believe we made it. I thought last night. I thought we wouldn't. Miguel shot him a sidelong glance. You doubted us? Ray's lips twitched into a weak smile. A little. You know me. Miguel shook his head, a faint grin crossing his sun-weathered face. You doubted everyone else too. That's why we survived. You had fire in your gut. That's all it took. The volunteers were clearing the burned nest, scattering remaining embers, and ensuring no hidden eggs remained. They moved efficiently, murmuring to one another about the traps, the scorched ground, and the surviving snakes that might still lurk in the field shadows. One of them, a young woman with a ponytail and dirt-smeared clothes, looked up at Ray. You okay, sir? Ray nodded, chest tight. I will be, just still getting used to being alive. Miguel chuckled softly. Alive's better than whatever the alternative felt like, right? Ray swallowed hard, eyes scanning the blackened mound. Yeah, better than the alternative. They reached the farmhouse, where the volunteers had set up temporary barricades around the most damaged windows and doors. Miguel leaned against the porch, taking a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. Ray watched him, chest aching with gratitude and exhaustion. Miguel, you could have walked away. You had every reason to. Why didn't you? Miguel opened his eyes slowly, meeting Ray's gaze. Because someone had to make sure you made it through this alive. And because you do the same for me. Ray's throat tightened. He swallowed, nodding. Yeah, I would've. There was a long pause, broken only by the soft crackle of distant fire in the field and the murmur of volunteers packing away tools. The leader of the volunteer crew approached, wiping sweat and grime from his forehead. Field's clear, he said. Noigs. No survivors from the nest. You've done well here. Could have been worse. Ray exhaled, letting his shoulders drop. Could have been worse, huh? You've seen worse. The leader gave a faint, grim smile. This is Florida. You get used to worse. But you survived. That counts. That's rare. Miguel stepped forward, clapping Ray on the shoulder. See? You've got that rare fire in you, Ray. Heart and guts. Ray swallowed, voice tight. Thanks. I couldn't have done alone. Not without you, Miguel. Not without these people. Miguel gave a brief nod. Good. Then remember it. They're the reason you're standing here today. As the volunteers packed away the last of their gear, Ray stepped toward the burned field, scanning the edges of the corn. Shadows flickered across the scorched earth. He knew better than to feel safe entirely. Miguel followed him, hands on his hips, gaze sharp. You thinking what I'm thinking? Ray frowned. That it's not over, that they'll be back. Miguel gave a slow nod. Exactly, but we've made it through the worst. They've been pushed back. You've still got your farm, your life. That's enough for today. Ray's eyes lingered on the blackened mound where the nest had been. Hundreds of eggs destroyed. One mother dead. Smaller pythons scattered. Yet the field still felt alive. Waiting. I can't help thinking, Ray said slowly, that if I ever let my guard down, they'd come back. Miguel's gaze softened, but his voice was firm. Then don't. Stay ready. Keep watch. That's all you can do. The two men walked back to the farmhouse, where the volunteers were beginning to eat from a cooler. Miguel sat on the porch steps, sighing heavily. Ray lowered himself next to him. So what now? Miguel exhaled slowly, eyes on the horizon. Now, you rebuild. Fortify. Keep watch. You live your life. But don't forget what's out there. Pythons don't sleep, they wait. They're patient. That's how they survive. Ray nodded, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down. Yep, patient. I get it. Miguel gave him a faint smile. And so are we, Ray. Patient. Smart. Always ready. That's the only way you survive a war like this. Ray glanced at the volunteers, who were laughing softly at a small joke, wiping sweat from their brows, finally at ease. He felt a pang of gratitude. Without them, he and Miguel might not have survived the night or the assault on the nest. Look at them, Ray muttered. They saved us. All of us. Miguel's gaze followed his, calm but alert. Yeah, and that's the lesson. You don't do this alone. Not if you want to live. Ray nodded slowly. I get it. I'll never forget it. The farmhouse, though battered and scarred from the night's siege, now felt like a refuge again. The fire had destroyed parts of it, but with the volunteers' help, temporary repairs were in place. Ray ran a hand along a splintered doorframe, shuddering at the memory of the python smashing through the wall the night before. Miguel leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. You scared? Ray's chest tightened. Every day, maybe, but alive. That's what matters. Miguel gave a faint, approving nod. Good. That's what counts. Even as they spoke, a rustling came from the edges of the field, a subtle whisper among the remaining stalks. Ray froze, heart hammering. Miguel's hand went to his machete. What did I say? Ray swallowed hard. Patient. They're patient. Miguel's lips twitched in a faint smile. Exactly. And so are we. The day stretched on, volunteers packing their gear and leaving the farmstead behind. Ray and Miguel walked the edges of the cornfield, eyes sharp, ears tuned to every movement. Ray's voice was quiet. I keep thinking maybe it's over. Maybe they won't come back. Miguel's gaze was steady, scanning the field. Maybe, but maybe they will. That's why you stay ready. That's why you respect them. That's why you survive. Ray nodded slowly, fists clenching. I will. I have to. For my farm, for the land, for life. Miguel placed a steady hand on his shoulder. And that, amigo, is how you win. Not by killing every snake, but by surviving, by staying alive. Ray's eyes scanned the horizon again. The cornfield was quiet now, blackened patches of stalks stretching into the distance. Yet beneath the quiet, he could feel the presence of the hidden world that had nearly destroyed him. Patient, waiting. But for now, Ray was alive. Miguel was alive. The farmhouse stood, and that, for today, was victory. The sun set over the farm, casting long shadows across the burned edges of the cornfield. The air was still, except for the occasional whisper of wind and the faint crackle of smoldering stalks. Ray and Miguel sat on the porch, watching the horizon. Words weren't necessary. Survival had forged a bond stronger than fear, stronger than any python's coil. They had faced death together and lived. Ray's hand rested on his shotgun, his mind racing with what might come next. But for tonight, the farm was theirs again. And for tonight, that was enough. Miguel's voice broke the silence, calm but firm. Tomorrow, we rebuild. But tonight, we rest. Ray nodded, eyes on the horizon. Tonight, we survive. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the quiet of the farm felt like home again.